The great glass dome floated in space between two bright suns. Inside, beings from 12 different worlds sat around a huge table made of blue crystal. They had come here to talk about important things that happened in their part of the galaxy. Admiral Vexthara stood up slowly. She was tall and blue, with 4 arms and eyes that glowed like yellow fire. Her voice was deep and strong as she spoke to the group. "Friends from all worlds," she said, "our scouts have found another world with life on it. The planet is far away in the outer part of our galaxy. We call it Sol 3. She pressed a button on the table. Pictures appeared in the air above them. The pictures showed a blue and green world with white clouds. Cities with tall buildings covered parts of the land. Small metal objects moved through the air above the cities. The creatures on this world walk on 2 legs, Vexthara continued. They have fur only on their heads. They still burn old dead plants and animals to make energy. They fight wars with each other using simple weapons. The beings around the table made sounds of laughter. Some clicked their tongues. Others made musical notes. A few growled deep in their throats. Commander Krellinox leaned forward in his chair. His skin was covered in scales that changed color when he felt different things. Right now, they were bright. Green, which meant he found something very funny. "Wait," he said with a hiss. "You are telling us these animals still shoot metal pieces at each other? They have not learned to travel faster than light?" "That is correct," Vexthara said. She showed more pictures. These showed human soldiers with guns. Then she showed rockets that moved very slowly compared to the ships the aliens used. "They are about 847 years behind us in making new things," she explained. "Their best weapons are bombs that split tiny pieces of matter. They have only managed to build a few small bases on the moon that circles their world." A being made of pure light energy spoke next. The light was contained inside a clear suit so it could sit with the others. Its voice sounded like beautiful music. "How sweet," it said. "Do they still think they are the only thinking beings in all of space?" "Yes, completely," Vexthara answered. "They have sent out simple radio waves, hoping someone might hear them. They have also sent small machines to look at nearby worlds. But they have no idea that we exist. Some of their old books talk about beings from the sky, but most of their smart people think these are just made-up stories." The pictures changed again. Now they showed humans looking up at the stars through simple telescopes. Other pictures showed humans praying in buildings with tall towers and crosses. "Look how they worship invisible beings in the sky," laughed a creature that looked like a giant insect. "They make up gods because they cannot understand the real universe." "There. Wars are the most entertaining part," added another alien with tentacles instead of arms. "They fight over invisible lines drawn on maps. They kill each other because they have different colored skin or worship different invisible gods." Vexthara nodded and showed pictures of human battles. Soldiers ran across fields while explosions went off around them. Big metal machines with guns rolled across the ground, shooting at each other. "They have divided their world into almost 200 different groups," she said. "Each group has different rules and different leaders. They cannot agree on anything. They waste most of their energy fighting instead of learning." The beings around the table shook their heads. Some made tutting sounds. Others just looked sad. "It is always the same with young species," said an old creature with gray skin and 6 eyes. "They must grow out of their violent phase before they can join civilized beings. If they do not destroy themselves first," added Krellinox. His scales had turned dark red now, which meant he was annoyed. Vexthara showed the last set of pictures. These showed human cities with smoke coming out of tall towers. Cars and trucks filled roads, all burning fuel and making dirty air. Garbage floated in the oceans. They are also poisoning their own world she said. They burn so much fuel that they are changing their planet's air. They fill their water with chemicals. They cut down their forests and kill many of their animals. Typical, muttered several aliens at once. The vote was quick and easy. All 12 species agreed to put Earth on what they called the Primitive Worlds List. This was a long list of planets where thinking beings lived, but were too simple and violent to meet civilized aliens. We will put a small watching station on the dark side of their moon, Vexthara announced. Young scientists can watch them and write reports. Maybe in a few hundred years, they will learn to be peaceful. Or maybe they will kill themselves first. Either way, we will know. The meeting ended, and the aliens went back to their ships. They had more important things to do than worry about violent primitives on the edge of the galaxy. 3 days later, a small ship landed on the moon's dark side. It was invisible to human eyes and made no sound. Inside, Lieutenant Zarolin set up her equipment and started watching the humans below. Zarolin was young for her species. She had purple skin and 6 thin arms that moved like a dancer's. This was her first real job after finishing school. She was excited to study primitive beings, even if they were boring. Let me see what these simple creatures do all day, she said to herself as she turned on the viewing screens. The first thing she saw was a human city waking up in the morning. Millions of humans climbed into metal boxes with wheels and drove to different buildings. They worked all day making things or moving information around, then drove home to their families. So predictable, Zarolin thought. Just like the books said, primitive daily routines with no higher purpose. She watched human children play in yards and parks. She saw humans buy food at markets and cook it in their homes. She saw them sit in front of glowing screens for entertainment. Nothing interesting here, she said as she started her first report. Species exhibits typical pre-galactic behavior patterns. No signs of advanced thinking or culture. But as she watched more closely over the next few days, she began to notice small things that seemed strange. The humans did not all act the same way. They made different choices. They created new things that had never existed before. Some humans spent their free time looking at the stars. Others wrote stories and made music. Some painted pictures while others tried to solve hard problems with numbers and equations. Odd, Zarolin muttered as she watched a human named Robert work late into the night, trying to figure out how to make a new kind of medicine. Why does he keep trying when he fails so many times? She made a note in her report, but did not think much about it. After all, her teachers had told her that primitive species sometimes showed random flashes of intelligence. It did not mean anything important. Zarolin settled in for what she expected to be a very boring assignment, watching very boring creatures on a very boring world. She had no idea that she was about to discover something that would change everything. The galaxy thought it knew about the primitive planet called Earth. 3 months had passed since Zarolin started watching the humans. She had settled into a routine that was as boring as she expected. Every day, she watched the same simple patterns. Humans woke up, went to work, came home, and went to sleep. They fought small wars, built simple machines, and worshipped their invisible gods. She was writing her monthly report when something caught her attention. Her viewing screen showed a group of human soldiers in a place called Afghanistan. The land was all rocks and high mountains with very little water or green plants. The soldiers were led by a man named Captain Jake Morrison. He was tall and strong with short brown hair and serious eyes. Next to him stood Sergeant Lisa Rodriguez, a woman with dark skin and quick, smart movements. They had 20 other soldiers with them. Zarolin watched as the humans moved through a narrow valley between 2 mountains. They carried heavy packs and weapons that looked very simple compared to alien technology. Their clothes were the color of sand and rocks to help them hide. Standard primitive military movement, Zarlin said to herself as she made notes. Slow, predictable, and inefficient. But then something went wrong. Enemy soldiers appeared. On the hills above them, there were many more enemies than friends. The humans were trapped in the valley with nowhere to run. Zarlin leaned forward to watch what would happen next. According to everything she had learned in school, the humans should either run away or give up. Primitive species always chose the safe option when they were outnumbered. Instead, Captain Morrison did something that made no sense. He started giving orders to his soldiers using only small hand movements. The soldiers spread out and began, moving in ways that Zarlin had never seen before. What are they doing? She whispered. Sergeant Rodriguez took 5 soldiers and disappeared behind some rocks. Captain Morrison and the others started shooting at the enemy soldiers on the hills. But they were not just shooting randomly. They were shooting in a pattern. That forced the enemies to move to certain places. The enemy soldiers did exactly what the humans wanted them to do. They moved to better positions on the hills where they could shoot down at the humans. But these better positions were exactly where Sergeant Rodriguez and her soldiers were waiting. The battle was over in 20 minutes. The humans won even though they were outnumbered 3-1. Not a single human soldier was hurt badly. Zarlin stared at her screen in confusion. She rewound the recording and watched it again. And she watched it a third time. This should not be possible, she said. She ran the battle through her computer. The computer was loaded with the best military knowledge from all 12 species in the Galactic Council. The computer analyzed every move the humans made. The result shocked her. The computer said that even the best alien soldiers would have had trouble winning that battle. The humans had used their simple weapons and basic equipment better than advanced aliens would have used their advanced tools. How did they know the enemy would move to those rocks? Zarlin asked the computer. Insufficient data, the computer replied. Human tactical decision appears to be based on intuitive understanding of enemy psychology rather than logical analysis. Zarlin did not understand what that meant. In her world, all military decisions were made by computers that calculated the best choice based on known facts. The humans had made their decision based on guessing what the enemy would do, but their guess was right. She began looking for more examples. Over the next few weeks, she watched human soldiers in different parts of the world. Again and again, she saw them do things that should not work, but did work. In a place called Iraq, she watched a human sergeant named Danny Cooper lead his men out of an ambush by doing something completely unexpected. Instead of fighting or running, he had his soldiers start helping injured civilians. This confused the enemy so much that they stopped shooting long enough for other human soldiers to surround them. In a place called Vietnam, she watched old recordings of human soldiers who had fought in thick jungles. They learned to move like animals and think like hunters. They won battles against enemies who knew the land better and had better weapons. None of this makes sense, Zarlin muttered as she studied the recordings. She decided to look at humans who were not soldiers. Maybe the military humans were special somehow. She found a human scientist named Dr. Amanda Foster, who worked at a place called MIT. Dr. Foster was trying to solve a mathematics problem that had puzzled the smartest beings in the galaxy for decades. Zarlin watched as Dr. Foster worked day and night on the problem. She used simple tools, just paper, pencils, and a basic computer. She did not have access to the advanced thinking machines that alien scientists used. After 2 weeks of work, Dr. Foster solved the problem. Zarlin checked the solution 3 times. It was correct. A human using primitive tools had solved something that alien supercomputers could not figure out. How? Zaralyn asked herself. She looked at Dr. Foster's method. The human had not used the logical step-by-step approach that aliens used. Instead, she had made intuitive leaps. She had guessed at connections between different parts of the problem, and then proved that her guesses were right. Zaralyn found more examples. A human engineer named Carlos Rivera designed a machine that did the same job as an alien energy device. But Carlos's machine was much simpler and used much less power. A human artist named Maria Santos created music that made other humans feel strong emotions. When Zaralyn played the music for herself, she felt strange new feelings that she had never experienced before. A human doctor named Kevin Brooks found a new way to treat a disease by combining old treatments in a way that no one had tried before. His method worked better than the advanced alien medicine. Each example showed the same pattern. Humans took simple tools and limited knowledge, and somehow made them work better than they should. They made connections that pure logic could not find. They succeeded by ignoring the rules that said they should fail. Zaralyn wrote a long report about what she had discovered. She sent it to her boss, Commander Thelanara, and waited for a response. Commander Thelanara was an older alien with silver skin and 3 eyes. She had been studying primitive species for over a century. When she read Zaralyn's report, she was not impressed. "Lieutenant Zaralyn," she said when she called to discuss the report, "I think you are spending too much time watching these humans. You are starting to think they are more special than they really are." "But Commander, the evidence clearly shows." "The evidence shows random luck," Thelanara interrupted. "Primitive species sometimes succeed by accident. A few lucky guesses do not mean they are intelligent. I have seen this happen with dozens of species. Young researchers always think their subjects are unique. What about the mathematical proof? Dr. Foster solved a problem that our best minds could not solve." "Even a broken clock is right twice a day," Thelanara said. "Focus on documenting their wars and primitive customs like you are supposed to. Stop wasting time on meaningless coincidences." Zaralyn ended the call feeling frustrated. She knew what she had seen was not random luck. The humans were doing something that the galaxy had never seen before. They were succeeding in ways that should not be possible. She looked at her viewing screens again. Captain Morrison was training new soldiers. Dr. Foster was working on another impossible problem. Carlos Rivera was designing another efficient machine. "I know you are special," Zaralyn whispered to the humans on her screen. "I just have to prove it." She decided to keep watching and keep recording. Sooner or later, she would find evidence that even Commander Thelanara could not ignore. She would prove that the humans were not just another primitive species dot. She would prove that they were something entirely new. 6 months later, Zaralyn discovered something that changed everything she thought she knew about humans. She was monitoring their communication signals when she picked up excited chatter about something called the Apollo program. At first, she thought it was another human war project. They were always building new weapons and planning new battles. But as she translated their words and studied their plans, she realized this was something completely different. The humans were planning to visit other worlds. Zaralyn laughed out loud when she first understood their plan. They want to travel to space by sitting on top of controlled explosions? That is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard. She watched as thousands of humans worked together to build huge metal rockets. The rockets were filled with fuel that would burn and explode to push them up into space. It was like trying to travel by riding on top of a bomb. "This will never work," she said to herself. "It is too dangerous and too primitive." But then she looked at their mathematics. The humans had calculated exactly how much fuel they needed, how fast they had to go, and where they needed to aim. Their numbers were perfect. She watched as they tested their rockets again and again. Some exploded, some crashed. Some flew into space but could not come back. Each time they failed, they learned something new and tried again. They are not giving up, Zaralyn realized. They keep trying even when it seems impossible. She began to understand that human primitiveness was not really primitiveness at all. It was just a different way of solving problems. Where aliens used advanced technology and careful planning, humans used creativity and determination. The day finally came when the humans launched their biggest rocket yet. Inside were three men named Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins. They were going to try to land on the moon. Zaralyn watched from her hidden station as the human rocket flew past her. She could see the humans inside through her advanced scanners. They looked calm and confident, even though they were riding on controlled explosions toward an airless world. "They are actually going to do it," she whispered. The rocket circled the moon several times. Then a smaller part broke off and began to descend toward the surface. Zaralyn held her breath as she watched it land just a few hundred miles from where she was hiding. Two humans climbed out of their small landing craft. They wore bulky white suits to protect them from the vacuum of space. They moved slowly and carefully, but they were smiling inside their helmets. "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind," Neil Armstrong said as he stepped onto the moon's surface. Zaralyn felt something she had never experienced before. She was watching a species take their first steps into the universe. They had done it with primitive technology and raw courage. "Incredible," she breathed. She began to study human space exploration more carefully. She discovered that humans had been dreaming about visiting other worlds for thousands of years. They wrote stories about it, painted pictures of it, and sang songs about it long before they had any way to actually do it. They imagined it first, Zaralyn realized. They decided it was possible before they knew how to make it possible. This was completely different from how other species developed. Aliens only tried to do things after they had proven they could do them. Humans tried to do things because they wanted to do them, and then they figured out how. She looked at other human achievements with new eyes. She discovered that humans had a long history of attempting the impossible and succeeding. They had learned to fly by studying birds and building machines that flapped wings. When that did not work, they tried different approaches until they found one that did work. They had learned to cure diseases by testing thousands of different treatments. Many of the treatments were dangerous or deadly, but they kept trying until they found ones that helped people. They had learned to communicate across vast distances by sending signals through the air. They could not see these signals or touch them, but they believed they existed and found ways to use them. "They do not wait for permission from the universe," Zaralyn said to herself. "They just do what they want to do." She began to understand that human emotions, which aliens saw as weaknesses, were actually strengths. Human curiosity made them want to explore. Human stubbornness made them keep trying when logic said they should quit. Human love made them work together on projects that no individual could complete alone. The Apollo program was the perfect example. Hundreds of thousands of humans had worked together for years to put 3 people on the moon. They did it not because they had to, but because they wanted to prove it could be done. Zaralyn studied human art and music with new interest. She discovered that humans created beautiful things, not because they needed them, but because creating beauty made them happy. They painted pictures of sunsets and flowers. They wrote songs about love and loss. They told stories about heroes and adventures. They do not just survive, she realized. They live. She compared human culture to alien culture. Most alien species had focused on efficiency and logic as they developed. They had gradually eliminated emotions and creativity because these things were unpredictable and sometimes caused problems. But humans had kept their emotions and creativity. They had learned to use them as tools for solving problems and making life better. When humans faced a challenge, they did not just calculate the most logical solution. They also asked, what solution would make us happy? What solution would help the most people? What solution would be the most interesting to try? This led them to solutions that pure logic could never find. Zaralyn wrote her most detailed report yet. She titled it, Urgent Reassessment Required. Sol 3 Species Shows Unprecedented Development Pattern. She documented dozens of examples of human achievement that defied conventional understanding of primitive species. She sent the report to Commander Thelanara and waited for a response. 3 days later, Thelanara called her. Lieutenant Zaralyn, I am concerned about your mental health, the commander said. You have become obsessed with these humans. You are seeing things that are not there. Commander, the evidence is overwhelming. The humans are not developing. Like other species, they are keeping their primitive traits and using them to achieve advanced goals. That is impossible. All species must become logical and efficient to advance. Emotion and creativity are weaknesses that evolution eliminates. But the humans are proving that wrong. They are using emotion and creativity to solve problems that logic cannot solve. You need to take a break from your assignment, Thelanara said firmly. I am sending Dr. Veltara to examine you. You may be suffering from anthropomorphic projection syndrome. Zaralyn knew that arguing would only make things worse. Yes, Commander. I will await Dr. Veltara's arrival. After the call ended, Zaralyn looked at her screens again. The humans were planning their next space mission. They wanted to build a permanent station in orbit around their world. Then they wanted to go to Mars. You are not going to stop exploring, are you? She asked them silently. You are going to keep reaching for the stars no matter what anyone says. She thought about her own people. The Zephyrians had achieved great technology and wisdom, but they had lost something along the way. They no longer felt wonder when they looked at the stars. They no longer created art that made people cry. They no longer took risks just to see what would happen. Maybe we are the ones who are primitive, Zaralyn whispered. She decided to keep watching and keep recording, no matter what her superior said. She had discovered something that could change how the galaxy understood intelligence and development. She was not going to give up just because it seemed impossible. After all, she had learned something important from the humans. Sometimes the most important discoveries come from refusing to accept that something cannot be done. Everything changed for Zaralyn during what humans called the Cuban Missile Crisis. She had been watching the humans for almost a year, and she thought she understood them. But nothing could have prepared her for what she witnessed during those 13 terrifying days in October 1962. It started when her monitoring equipment detected unusual human military activity. Ships were moving across the oceans. Planes were flying in new patterns. Soldiers were being moved to different places. The humans seemed to be preparing for something big. Zaralyn focused her scanners on the island humans called Kuba. She saw Soviet ships carrying long metal cylinders that her computer identified as nuclear missiles. The Americans had found these missiles and were very angry about them. Another primitive territorial dispute, she said to herself. They will make loud noises at each other and then go back to normal. But as she monitored human communications, she realized this was not a normal dispute. Both sides had enough nuclear weapons to destroy their entire world. They were not just threatening each other anymore. They were threatening all life on Earth, not according to everything Zaralyn had learned about primitive species. This was where they always destroyed themselves. When a species developed weapons that could end their civilization, they always used them. It was as predictable as the rising of a sun. She watched President Kennedy in Washington and Premier Khrushchev in Moscow. Both men were surrounded by advisors who wanted them to attack first. Military leaders on both sides were demanding action. The humans seemed to be rushing toward the same fate that had befallen dozens of other primitive species. So predictable, Zarlin sighed. They will be extinct within the week. But then something happened that she had never seen before in any species. The humans began to step back from the edge of destruction. She watched President Kennedy ignore his military advisors who wanted to bomb Cuba. Instead, he chose to talk to the Soviets. He offered to make a deal rather than start a war. She watched Premier Khrushchev face pressure from his own military leaders, who called him weak for not using their weapons. But he also chose to talk instead of fight. What are they doing? Zarlin asked herself. They have the power to destroy their enemies. Why are they not using it? She monitored human communications more closely. She discovered that both leaders were getting advice from people who understood what nuclear war would really mean. Scientists, doctors, and ordinary citizens were telling their leaders to find another way. She watched a human naval officer named William Baker, who was on a submarine carrying nuclear weapons. He received orders to launch the weapons, but he refused. He said he would not be the person who ended the world. She watched a Soviet colonel named Ivan Petrov, who was monitoring early warning systems. When his computers said American missiles were coming, he realized it was a false alarm and chose not to report it. If he had reported it, the Soviets would have launched their weapons in response. They are choosing not to use their power, Zarlin realized. They could destroy each other, but they are choosing not to. She had never seen this before. Every other species in the galaxy had faced the same choice, and they had all chosen destruction. Some had destroyed themselves completely. Others had survived only after devastating wars that set their development back by centuries. But the humans were different. They had all the same fears and pressures as other species, but they were making a different choice. She watched as the crisis slowly ended. The Soviets agreed to remove their missiles from Cuba. The Americans agreed not to invade Cuba and to remove their missiles from Turkey. Both sides stepped back from the edge of nuclear war. Impossible, Zarlin whispered. How did they do that? She studied the recordings over and over. She analyzed every conversation, every decision, every moment when the humans could have chosen war but chose peace instead. She discovered that the humans had something that other species had lost during their development: the ability to feel fear and let that fear make them wiser instead of more violent. President Kennedy was afraid of nuclear war because he understood what it would do to children around the world. Premier Khrushchev was afraid because he remembered the devastation of World War II. Their fear did not make them want to attack first. It made them want to find a way to avoid attacking at all. The humans had also kept their ability to empathize with their enemies. They could imagine what it would be like to be on the other side. This helped them understand what kind of deal their enemies might accept. They can feel what their enemies feel, Zarlin said in amazement. They can understand their enemies' fears and needs. She compared this to how other species had handled similar crises. The Zephyrians had faced their nuclear moment 2,000 years earlier. When they developed weapons that could destroy their world, they had used them. The survivors had been forced to rebuild their civilization from scratch. The Andromedians had been luckier. They had destroyed only half their world before they learned to control their weapons. But it had taken them 500 years to recover. Most species that reached the nuclear stage destroyed themselves completely. The galaxy was full of dead worlds that had once been home to intelligent life. But the humans had walked up to the edge of the abyss, looked into it, and chosen to walk away. They are not just intelligent, Zarlin realized. They are wise. She began to understand that human emotions were not weaknesses at all. They were a different kind of intelligence. Where aliens used logic to solve problems, humans used a combination of logic and emotion It was more powerful than either one alone. Human love made them want to protect their families and their world. Human fear made them understand the consequences of their choices. Human empathy made them care about people they had never met. These emotions did not make humans weak. They made humans strong enough to make the hardest choice of all, a choice to show mercy to their enemies. Zaralyn looked at human wars with new understanding. She had always seen them as proof that humans were primitive and violent. But now she saw them as training exercises. The humans were learning how to fight, but they were also learning when not to fight. Their wars had taught them that victory was not always worth the cost. They had learned that some enemies could become friends. They had learned that the strongest warriors were those who knew when to put down their weapons. She watched human soldiers in Vietnam who chose to help wounded enemies instead of killing them. She watched human pilots who refused to bomb schools and hospitals, even when their commanders ordered them to. She watched human generals who ended battles early to save lives on both sides. They are learning to be strong and gentle at the same time, she said to herself. She realized that this was what made humans truly unique. Other species had to choose between being logical or emotional, between being strong or compassionate, between being warriors or peacemakers. Humans had found a way to be all of these things at once. When Admiral Vexthara finally agreed to review Zaralyn's reports, she was deeply disturbed by what she read. The evidence was overwhelming, but the implications were terrifying. If you are correct, Vexthara said during their video call, then we are dealing with a species that combines the tactical thinking of our best military minds with the emotional intelligence of our most advanced philosophers. That is exactly what I am saying, Zaralyn replied. They are not losing their primitive abilities as they advance. They are refining them. Do you understand what this means? Vexthara asked. When they develop faster than light travel, they will enter our galaxy as something we have never encountered, a species that can think like warriors and feel like poets. Zaralyn nodded. They will be more adaptable than us, more creative than us, and more determined than us. But they will also be more compassionate than us. That may be the most dangerous combination of all, Vexthara said quietly. The conversation ended with both aliens staring at their screens, wondering what would happen when humanity finally reached the stars. The call that changed everything came on a quiet Tuesday morning. Zaralyn was reviewing her latest reports when Admiral Vexthara appeared on her communication screen. The Admiral's 4 arms were moving in patterns that showed extreme agitation. Lieutenant, we have a problem, Vexthara said without any greeting. The Andromedian Trade Federation has intercepted a human probe at the edge of their solar system. Zaralyn sat up straight. A probe? The humans have sent something into deep space? Something called Voyager 1. It carries a golden disk with messages from their world. The Federation analyzed it and sent their findings to us immediately. Vexthara transmitted the Federation's report to Zaralyn's computer. As she read it, her purple skin grew pale. The golden record contained greetings in human languages, but it also had mathematical constants that showed deep understanding of the universe. It had diagrams of atoms and star charts that demonstrated knowledge of their place in the galaxy. Most disturbing of all, it contained music that the Federation's experts said showed unprecedented artistic sophistication. Admiral, Zaralyn said slowly, this proves everything I have been trying to tell you. The humans are not primitive. They are developing along a completely different path than any species we have ever known. That is exactly what worries me, Vexthara replied. Admiral Quintara from the Federation is coming here tomorrow. She says we need to have an emergency meeting. The next day, a great glass dome filled with representatives from all 12 species. But this time, the mood was very different. Instead of laughter and mockery, there was tension and fear. Admiral Quintara stood at the center of the room. She was a member of the ethereal collective, her energy body flickering with worry inside its containment suit. "Fellow beings," she began, "we have made a terrible mistake. The Sol 3 inhabitants are not primitive. They are primitive right now, but they will not stay that way much longer." She displayed holographic images of the Voyager probe and its golden record. "Our analysis shows that their rate of technological advancement is exponential. They will achieve faster-than-light travel within 150 of their years. That is incredibly fast by galactic standards." Commander Krellinox, whose scales were now dark blue with anxiety, leaned forward. "But surely once they achieve advanced technology, they will become civilized like the rest of us?" "That is the problem," Quintara replied. "They will not. Our psychological analysis of their cultural broadcasts shows that they are retaining their aggressive and exploratory instinct.